2.5 part 3. We are in the Middle Ages or medieval times, and this is the early Middle Ages with the Romanesque. And I'm sorry if I kind of didn't point very correctly. The apse is here. This is the nave. So I don't think I clarified that very well. We're going to look at a diagram of Church of Saint Madeleine in France. So it's Romanesque. Don't confuse Roman with Romanesque. There's a 1,000-year difference. So, like I said, there are these people, these current architects in 1100 are looking at the ruins from 1,000 years ago. The Romans are gone, and I mean, there's fine details to this that you could argue the Romans are still there. But anyway, the Romans are not in power. Things are in a really different state in Europe, but they're influenced by Roman architecture that is all around them, especially in Italy, where Rome actually is. But France, even England, has Roman ruins all over Europe, okay? They conquered a huge area. You can look up a map of their empire. It's quite impressive. But they're now looking at these architectural details because Christian pilgrimages become quite a thing, and having a relic in a church, a part of bone or a tooth or something like that, remains. And sometimes it's things like clothing a saint wore or something like that too, or a cross or something that they owned. I don't know specifically, we don't get that much into that in the book. But the reliquaries would be there off to the side, and they would want to visit that and be near it. So they would get honor by doing these pilgrimages. Okay, so there's many stops on these pilgrimage routes all over Europe. You would go to a variety of them. So some people couldn't go all the way to Israel, as I said, which was Jerusalem, Israel. Going into different places where Christ actually was or believed to be. Then you would just go to these different churches within Europe. Not everybody had the means to get all the way down, across the Mediterranean. So barrel vaults are accommodating a great number of visitors, and we need thicker walls now because we have this huge amount of mass up here, right, coming down. So that required thicker walls. And then the windows had to be small, but it is letting in some light. Okay, so this is a breakdown of Gothic architecture, but it's similar to Romanesque. Although the cross design, this is the cross design, that is more typical with Gothic architecture. Okay, so the apse is down here, and the nave is this part. Now these aisles are ambulatories, okay? That is a place you can walk around all the way behind where the priest might be giving a service. How you want to say, your ordinary parishioners would be here, and the pilgrims could walk around here without interrupting the service, if that makes sense, okay? There's some radiating chapels here, these little tiny mini chapels where the relics would be, okay? Oh, and flying buttresses, we're going to look at those. Those are exterior elements that are going to support the arch. So we're going to look at this pointed arch. This is Gothic now, late Middle Ages, the second style in the Middle Ages. The first one's Romanesque. So it's getting refined, and this pointed arch takes reaches up into even further new heights, okay? Because of the displaced weight. Flying buttresses, previous in Roman, we don't have a diagram for it, but in Roman architecture, the buttress would have been solid, okay? So a solid mass right here, something like this, that would be a solid buttress. Oh, here we do have it. I beg your pardon. So a flying buttress would be this top part pushing the weight from the dome, from the arch, down, through down to the solid buttress, okay? So this is our ambulatory or our aisle. So the walking around in here. But look how high this arch is, and you're going to see it. Incredible. So this is the Abbey Church of Saint Denis in France. So we're still in France, and Gothic architecture is spreading further. And what is notable, the shift from Romanesque to Gothic, two things. One, well, there's many things, but two basic things. You're going to have this pointed arch, which you can't really see it very well from this angle, but this is at a point here. You can see it here. There's a mini pointed arch here. That's one. Down here you can see it. You can kind of think about Harry Potter a little bit with this pointed arch. And the second thing are the windows. So number 2 would be the ability to have what we call clerestory windows. That's more typical of this style down here, but clerestory has to do with placement up at the top of the wall. Now these are all stained glass, and the rose window, which we don't see in this diagram, but the rose window is something that is associated with Gothic architecture specifically, but also stained glass is highlighted with Gothic. Okay, so Abbot Suger, we don't know a lot of architects, but in this case we know him, and he talks about the dynamics of Gothic architecture. He wrote down a lot of notes that we still have. So the worshiper should be bathed in divine light. The flying buttresses allow for large stained glass windows, which he feels accentuates that divine light coming through, and that the parishioners or the pilgrims should feel lifted up toward heaven when they walk in this space. Okay, so this one we're going to look at Chartres Cathedral. We don't have Notre Dame here. Later in the book we have it, and it recently burned, which is terrible. Notre Dame and Chartres look pretty similar. These two spires are from different eras. I won't get too into that, but you can see a rose window here, okay? That is indicative of Gothic architecture. Also, we can see our pointed arches, not really well, but they're there. And then this has a great illustration of flying buttresses, if you see that. See how that area is open? There's a lot of negative space, so all that weight is getting pushed away and down. Next thing we're going to get into are domes. Now a dome is like an arch, but it's a 360-degree curve. So it's a half of a sphere, okay? Not exactly always, but we will look at this. It's a very strong structure. Again, go back to your egg analogy. That's a strong. If you've ever broken open a well, I guess a raw egg too, but a soft-boiled egg or a hard-boiled egg, a lot of times that whole curve will be the last part to go because it doesn't want to break down. The sides will go first. Okay. So the Hagia Sophia is just so amazing. This is on my bucket list. I have not been here. This is in Istanbul. And this dome here is massive. And it's the biggest dome structure. I want to say it's for 1,000 years. Yes. So it's for 1,000 years. It's so large and high that for 1,000 years it was the largest interior space of any cathedral in the world. Okay, so originally this was built in the year 532 of the Common Era. So this is a 1,500-year-old building. It's mind-boggling because what we were looking for, at before, with the Gothic and the Romanesque, those are almost 1,000 years old or 800 years old, and this is almost twice that age. So this dome existed, and this was originally a Christian church, and then it became an Islamic mosque, and then now it is a tourist center. So there's a variety of layers of things off in these corners and design motifs that have been painted over as it has switched hands. Up here in these this upstairs area, I believe that's where some of the stuff that the original artists put on the walls and mosaics and frescoes. But anyway, we're studying the dome here. Here is what we call pendentives, this little triangular piece here. We're going to look at it. It's a Byzantine structure, a little bit of clerestory windows, and then our pendentives are transferring the load. Oh yeah, we do have an illustration. So you can kind of see how some of that incredible weight that's on that dome is getting transferred down, okay? Now we're going to back up and look at the Pantheon. I've been here twice. Super fantastic building. Now this one is 2,000 years old. So the difference between these two structures is about 500 years, but the Pantheon, again, we'll go back to the Romans, several things that are invented by them, the arch, and then hence the dome with the Romans. Another invention here is that this is concrete. Concrete did not exist in many cultures for many years. It's really considered a 20th century material. But the Romans had caementa, which was a kind of a concrete or cement, and the recipe was unknown for about 2,000 years. And then finally people in the 20th century figured it out again, which is kind of boggling when you think about it. So the concrete dome would have been very, very heavy, so parts of it were taken out. Now these are mold forms, this wasn't carved out, but this is called corbelling, okay? So these parts were a design motif, but they serve a function to reduce the weight of the dome. So if this was filled in, we'd have a significant amount more weight. Does that make sense? But this is a perfect sphere. If you look at the building, really tremendous. And this opening here is called the oculus. It's an open space to the sky. And think about 2,000 years and these marble floors are intact. Everything's fine inside of here. Just a little bit of rain comes in and it sort of falls on the floor and they mop it up periodically. And I've been in there actually on a rainy day. Interesting. Survived really, really well. So we're going to backtrack and look at the Hagia Sophia. Isn't that incredible? It's right on the port here of Istanbul, which used to be Constantinople, and the seat of the Byzantine Empire. Massive dome, has to translate a lot of this weight out. So there's all this stuff that's built just to support this wall, which supports the dome, and then this buttress here is supporting that wall. It goes out further and further. These were put on later